Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
First of all, thank you for all of the attendance, ladies and gentlemen, men and women, who willing to hear my thought for tonight. It's about 5 consequences of not having access to education. As a guy growing up, many individuals assume that education is unlimited and that everyone has easy access. However, not receiving a proper education can have a major impact on an individual. Across the world, more than 72 million children are not able to gain access to an adequate education. In addition, almost 759 million adults remain illiterate. It means even adults still didn't get a proper education as children. Part of this includes a lack of awareness to pursue an education. Further, many people who do have access to education typically take it for granted when many children cannot. It is important to understand the value of learning and the potential repercussions without it. So here are 5 consequences of not having access to education. First of all, there can be lack of representation. First and foremost, not receiving an education can have a major consequences on an individual's voice. It means people who didn't get an enough education can give their opinion as much as an educated people. It can hinder the development of the skills necessary to represent oneself. This is further evident through the continuing oppression of women in developing countries. These women typically marry at a young age and must work at the accomplishment domestic course. In nations such as Saudi Arabia and Nigeria, many women without an education struggle at finding jobs. Additionally, these women typically cannot read or write and often grow reliant on their husband's income. So without their husbands, they cannot eat or feed their children. In the end, the lack of access robs women of their potential. To add, gender disparity in youth literacy remains prevalent in almost 1 in 5 countries. And then nextly, unemployment. In many nations, education often determines employability. These nations rely on well-educated workers to promote their economy and workforce. Employers also use these credentials to differentiate applicants and potential employees. By this means, without education, it's also hard to look for a job. Today, many organizations fighting this issue focus on education the youth, as approximately 71 million from 15 to 24 years old do not have employment around the world. So that's why going to college is really important. Without access to education, individuals are more prone to remain at the bottom of the list when it comes to obtaining jobs. Even as little as a high school diploma can open up many opportunities for employment. And then what it does, it promotes exploitation. Many individuals must resort to incredibly dangerous jobs just to make a living if they have limited education. Specifically, women and girls in developing countries often resort to various methods of exploitation to provide for themselves and their family. Education can provide secure work, but without it, people might have a difficulty time getting ahead. Exploitation can include sweatshop labor, prostitution, and child marriage. And then difficulty raising a children. If you're not an educated person, it's really hard for you to grow a child as a parent when you're not educated enough. And like before, this affect the next effect of not getting an access to education. Children often rely on their parents when it comes to their own education. However, it can be quite difficult for a parent to assist their children if they never had an access to education. It is important to understand how the lack of education can have consequences on future generations. Uneducated parents have faced issues such as the inability to help children with their homework or not knowing to help them find their full potential. According to the American Psychological Association, children of uneducated parents are typically behind their peers when it comes to cognitive development and literary levels. The effects of this issue were evident in 2014, where approximately 61 million children of primary school age did not attend school. So in order to avoid these 5 consequences of not having an access to education, citizens around the world need to take action to increase access to education, to help people to get more easier education and grow much more people. So just like parents who can teach their kids, just like people who can find more easier job than before, we can get people on a better place if we got a better education. So that's all for me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for